It was the kind of Saturday that begged for peace. The Texas sun was shining bright, the breeze was just enough to rustle the leaves without stirring up the dust, and all I wanted was to sip my coffee on the porch of my ranch and listen to the birds do their thing. But peace? Yeah, that wasn't in the cards for me. Not that day. Because that was the day I found myself trapped, literally barricaded inside my own property. Bumper to bumper, row after row of shiny luxury vehicles were lined up like a dealership lot gone rogue, completely blocking the only gate to my ranch. My driveway? Gone. My exit? Non-existent. And it wasn't some innocent mistake by tourists taking a wrong turn off the highway. No, this was the work of Karen Whitaker, the self-appointed queen of our HOA and full-time menace. Today's flavor of tyranny? Her daughter's over-the-top backyard wedding bash, held right next door. Now, let me paint you the picture of Karen. She's the type of woman who once fined me $75 because the rustic charm of my barn door didn't meet her neighborhood aesthetic standards. Imagine a permanent scowl, like she's perpetually smelling something sour, paired with a white pantsuit so starched it could stand up on its own. And today, that pantsuit was on full display, as she strutted around barking into a headset like she was stage managing a Broadway production instead of micromanaging a wedding. I'm not a confrontational guy. I believe in neighborly courtesy, you know? So I walked up to the nearest cluster of her guests, guys in tight tuxedos, women in designer dresses, all of them sipping champagne like they owned the place, and I said, "Calm as you please. Excuse me, would y'all mind moving your cars? You're blocking my drive, and I need to head out." One guy, oozing city slicker arrogance, looked me up and down like I was dirt on his patent leather shoes. "It's just for a few hours, man. Can't you wait?" That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, a full-on display of entitlement. And they were about to meet the real stars of this ranch. Boone and Ranger, my two Australian shepherds, each with a master's degree in mischief and a PhD in herding chaos. See, I could have called a tow truck. I could have called the sheriff. But that would have taken hours, and Karen? She'd have spun it into some HOA sob story about aggressive behavior and neighborhood safety. Nah, I had a better plan. I gave it one last try, grabbed a big piece of cardboard from the barn, scrawled, "Private property, do not block driveway," across it in bold letters, and propped it up right next to a pristine black Mercedes that looked allergic to gravel. 5 minutes later, I watched from my porch as some smug teenager in a pastel vest walked right up, flipped the sign over, and drew a smiley face on the back. Then he laughed like it was the best joke of the day. They didn't just ignore me. They were mocking me. And that's when I knew this was going to get muddy. Now, Boone and Ranger aren't your average ranch dogs. They've been with me since they were pups. Trained them myself. They can open gates, herd cattle, fetch beers from the cooler, you name it. But their favorite game? Crowd control. So I gave them the signal. One sharp whistle. Their ears perked up. They knew what time it was. The wedding reception was in full swing. Tents, a champagne tower, a dance floor laid out like it was prom night. The DJ was playing some soft love song and guests were mingling without a care in the world. That is, until Boone and Ranger trotted onto the scene, tails wagging like they were there to RSVP. At first, the guests cooed. "Oh, look at the cute doggies," one woman squealed, her mimosa wobbling dangerously close to the rim of her glass. But Boone and Ranger? They weren't there to make friends. I gave the next signal, just a subtle point toward the far paddock where the mud pit waited like a hungry beast. I'd been running drills with the cattle there all week. Thick, deep mud, the kind that doesn't just stain. It swallows. Boone moved fast, zigzagging through the crowd like a heat-seeking missile, barking sharp enough to snap people out of their drunken days. Ranger flanked wide, cutting off anyone who tried to break away toward the dance floor. And just like that, the herd of wedding guests started moving, confused at first, then concerned, and pretty soon, downright panicked. Karen was too busy berating a caterer about the temperature of the shrimp cocktail to notice the stampede forming behind her. But when her mother-in-law got shoulder-checked into a centerpiece and let out a scream, Karen spun around just in time to catch the chaos in action. It was beautiful. Dresses snagging on folding chairs, heels sinking into soft earth, one groomsman doing a full split trying to dodge Ranger before face-planting into the mud pit. The DJ's music screeched to a halt as the screams of guests filled the air. Karen, red-faced and flailing like a malfunctioning inflatable tube man, came stomping toward me. "Call off your mutts, you lunatic." I leaned against the fence, tipped my hat, and smiled. "Can't. They're on the clock." Karen's eyes bulged. "I'll sue you for this." But she wasn't done yet. Nope. She stormed over to the valet stand, ripping out her phone like she was about to order an airstrike. 15 minutes later, two bulky guys showed up in a dusty Ford, strutting across the lawn like they were about to solve all her problems. Probably cousins. Definitely trouble. They marched straight toward me, all puffed up. One of them cracked his knuckles. The other said, "Move your dogs, cowboy." I didn't say a word. Just walked real slow over to the side barn, unlatched the gate, and gave a low whistle. Out trotted my second team. 6 goats and 2 donkeys. The goats, named after country music legends Dolly, Willie, Loretta, and Johnny, were professionals. And the donkeys? Big, loud, and mean as a snake with a toothache. The muscle froze. One of them muttered, "Ah, hell." The goats made a beeline for the buffet table. Dolly launched herself onto a folding chair and went straight for the centerpiece. Willie knocked over the punch bowl with the precision of a demolition crew. And the donkeys? They brayed so loud they drowned out Karen's screeching. Guests screamed as the animals took over. One bridesmaid tried to shoo Johnny the goat away from the dessert tray. Johnny headbutted her straight into the mud. Karen was spinning in circles now, shouting nonsense, waving her arms like she could conduct the chaos back into order. But nobody was listening. Not the guests, not the animals, and certainly not me. The final blow came when Dolly climbed onto the DJ's table, stomped her hoof right on the soundboard, and let out a dramatic bleat as feedback echoed through the speakers. Silence followed except for the distant braying of the donkeys and the sloshing of designer shoes trapped in mud. Karen turned on me, wild-eyed. "You did this. You trained them to attack." I gave her a grin. "Train them to work, Karen. If you didn't want the herd moved, maybe don't block the gate." And just when I thought the day couldn't get any better, the bride, Karen's own daughter, turned on her. Mud streaked across her $1,000 dress, mascara running down her face. "Mom, I told you not to do this here. I told you to leave the neighbors alone." Karen tried to blubber out some excuse, but it was no use. The groom stood there holding half a smashed cake, looking like he regretted every decision that brought him to this moment. Guests started filming. Phones were up. TikTok was about to have a field day. When Karen tried to rally the crowd, pointing at me and hollering about lawsuits, one of her own guests, the muddy guy clutching his ruined gift bag, shouted back, "Honestly, Karen, you had this coming." It was like the floodgates opened. A few guests nodded. Somebody clapped. Karen's empire was crumbling right there on the front lawn. I gave Boone and Ranger the stop signal. They sat on command, tongues lolling, happy as could be. The goats kept nibbling, the donkeys kept braying, and me? I leaned back on the fence post, watching the whole show like it was primetime television. By Monday, the neighborhood group chat was on fire. Videos of the mud wedding massacre were everywhere. The HOA board? Furious. Karen? Suspended indefinitely. The next HOA meeting? Held right on my property. Potluck style. Dogs welcome. Boone and Ranger got little sheriff badges made out of beer caps. And me? Well, let's just say my driveway's been clear ever since. Moral of the story? Sometimes the best way to deal with a Karen isn't with a lawyer. It's with a couple of good dogs, a herd of hungry goats, and a whole lot of mud.